Well, this is actually supposed to be Ron's Rant 3.0, but something happened to the last one, so this is actually now, I guess, 3.1. So I had an interesting conversation today, and it was about the draft coming up and players worrying about the draft and talking about anxieties, like their common anxieties, as to about what they need to do. My cat's, oh, here we go. Okay, see her coming up in a minute here. Anyway, um, all right then. What are you doing? Okay, so anyway, she wants to witness the rant. Okay, so she's gonna go. So she usually starts smacking me with her tail. So anyway, so let's get back to the rant. So what had happened was is that the players they were all worried about are they going to get drafted or not getting drafted, and there's a lot of anxiety that happens with travel teams and different I mean how there's spring teams and there's all sorts of things that go on, junior B teams, junior A teams, Western Hockey League tryouts. In the summertime, there's many things that go on, and there's always this anxiety. And players, oh, my other cat came out of the house. I don't know if you saw that. It's a crazy place. Anyway, so what happens is all the anxiety that goes on with all of this stuff, and I really think about all the stress levels that players go through. And there's an interesting story, and it's anyway for those that don't know me. Anyway, so this is it's kind of a crazy tale. So I was adopted at 6 months, and my father that adopted me was 64, and my mother was 44. So my father died at 81 of a heart attack, and I was 17 years old. And I could have had I was doing very well in hockey, and there was some promise, but that was long gone. We were very poor, so I had to go out on the street, and I had to go to work full time and take care of myself. I had to, look after food and put food on the table, gas in my car, and go to work. And it was in grade 11, so I still had to go to grade 12. Pardon me, I still had to finish my school year. And there's a lot of mistakes that I made after my father passed away. I didn't have anybody that I could ask questions to, and so my mother, lucky for her, I mean, it's God's blessings that she ended up meeting a man that she fell in love with, and and she got remarried. And I didn't think that I was a great son. I didn't. I took my father for granted. My stepfather, I took him for granted. And he was a cowboy. He had competed in the Calgary Stampede. He was just a frontiersman, a very wise man, and I was very fortunate to have him and my mother, that raised me, and very very fortunate. So I didn't want to waste time this time. And my stepdad was Wilfred. My mom had remarried, and I got to know him very well over the time we spent together. And he passed away at 93, and I got an opportunity to ask him a lot of questions and kind of what were his experiences in life. I mean, you can't live till you're 90 without having some wisdom, and he had been through a lot in his life. And so he had cancer, and when he was in his 19 when he was 80 years old, 81 years old, and um, ended up that it took his life 11 years later. And it was about 3 weeks before he was going to pass away, and I could tell that his time was short, and we spent time. He sleep a lot, and anybody that's ever been through cancer understands it's just a tragedy what happens to a human being, and watching somebody just wilt away in front of you is sad. And God bless for all the people that survived that. And anyway, but what I sat down, I said to him, I said, Dad, when you're in all the things in your life, could you give me any wisdom, like any pearls that you could share with me, that you could say that of all your experience, that at the end of your days, that this is really what life came down to? And he said, it's a good question, son. He said, I found that life is three things. He said, as you know, I got cancer. And he said, I can't control that. My past is my past. And he was a drinker at that time, and he chewed tobacco, and it rotted his mouth out. He got mouth cancer, and he had to cut his jaw off and put a metal jaw in. It was quite horrific. And they took a big chunk out of his arm to make his inside of his mouth so that he could actually, have a mouth so he could eat. And never heard him complain ever. 11 years, never complained once. He had no sense of feeling. He had to chew and eat and swallow. He had a metal jaw. And one day it's sticking out the side of his face. The things he went through, he never complained once. He said, there's certain things I can control. I can control how I think, how I act, how I treat people, what I do. But I can't, there's things that happen that I have no control over. maybe if I had looked back in my life and did things a little bit different, maybe I could have had more control. But I'm stuck with what I did. So I can't control the fact that now I have cancer. I can just control how I treat it and how I act. He said, so really what I learned in my life is that there's things that you can't control, and there's things that you can control. And the difference in life and the wisdom is to really know the difference between the two. And so, I carried that through most of my life. I worked graveyard shift for 22 years. I worked, I did many things. I used to work graveyard shift, go home, sleep for a couple hours. I used to run a gym from 12 till 10. I used to coach hockey. I used to run hockey schools. It was a crazy life, and time just flew by. And I tried to manage my time effectively. I tried to help kids and do whatever I could. I tried to get better in coaching. I started companies. I did research, but I tried to take care of the things I could control. And I've made lots of mistakes, but I'm responsible for them. And what I try to tell kids now is that, we are in unprecedented times. You've got all of this time in your hands. I mean, think about it. You have 960 minutes every day to do what you want in your life. You're a kid. Think about it. You don't have to go to school. You've got all this daytime. So really, if you wanted to, you could get up in the morning and say, you know what? I'm going to do my schoolwork, and then I'm going to commit the rest of the time to my hockey development. If I really want to go, I really want that. I'm going to will myself to do these things. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to get this done. And I can't worry about what my draft is going to be. That's out of my hands. That's somebody else's hands. The only thing I can do is go back over my hockey. What could I have gotten better? And because we're on unprecedented times, I actually have, I call it a get out of jail free card. Really what you're doing is that we're not going to have hockey for 2 or 3 months. And normally what kids would be doing now is they'd be getting ready for junior B tryouts, junior A tryouts, these camps, spring teams, all these different things. There's a lot of anxiety. You try out for one, you don't make it. You go another one, you don't make it. All these different things that happen. And so really what there's going to be is a whole new set of fresh eyes on you when the season starts or when these camps open up. So what have you done? Everybody remembers where you were. And now you show up and you go, oh my God, like what has this kid done? It's incredible what he's done this summer. That's the only thing you can control. You can't control where you're going to get drafted. That's already behind you now. You have to deal with the cards you're dealt, and it's the only thing you can control right now is what you can control. Like what can you get on the phone and talk to some of your old coaches? Can you talk to people? And I got an interesting call from kind of an agent, and they wanted me to look at this kid. And so I looked at his highlight reel goals and his performance. And oh my God, this is a good kid. Now he's a great hockey player, but think about it. I'm looking at all of his highlight reel goals, and so the best of his best. And I'm looking at it going, now I have to try to find mistakes in what he's doing. And so then what I do is I go in the NHL, I break down some of the players there and what they're doing and how they're skating, how they're moving. And then I take his video and this video, their video, and I put it side by side so that the father can see that the kid can see the difference. And so he's using his time wisely. And I'm not going to tell you who his name is, but he's a high-level prospect. And so what you find with great players is that they don't like wasting time. So again, we talk about this. You are responsible for how you use your time and who you spend your time with, and those are very important things. And you can't hurry time. Time just it moves along. So it's how you use it, and you take advantage of every minute and every second. And it's crazy. Like in the pro players I work with, we're trying to manage tenths of a second. And at the NHL level, my research, we found that every tenth of a second at the NHL level could be anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 feet, depending on how fast you're skating. And so now if I can take a guy skating with speed, and I can get a shot away in 0.2 of a second faster, he just saved himself, 5 feet. That's enough. If you tell a pro player, look, if I can give you 2 feet of space, would you use it? Yeah. Well, there's pro players will change their edges when they do a crossover and they plant their edge and they explode. They'll change an edge in 1/100th of a second. Slow guys are 3 to 500ths of a second. Young players, so you have to look at all these things. We're not even talking seconds now. We're talking hundredths of a second, and they add up. And all these things, these little tiny things. This, a shift is 35 seconds to 45 seconds long. We're always managing time. I try to tell players that the one we are always the one commodity we're always trading in this game, is the one thing is time. I'm trying to give myself more time and give you less. I'm trying to use my time more efficiently. I'm trying to give the goaltender less time to read my shot, less time to react. All these different things, all we're doing is trading in time. And so ultimately it's how we use the time that really matters. And what I find is, what does stress have to do with that? It's you this anxiety to what could be is really comes down to what are you actually doing, and I think that's what's important. So today's rant's going to be a little less, but I just think about it. Think about the time that you used to get better, and don't worry about the anxieties of all these tryouts and things like that. I mean, what will be. I mean, coaches are always trying to find the best players. May not be the best player today, but you certainly might be the best player tomorrow. But it's how you move forward and how you perform your skills. What are you doing? Don't get stuck on fluff. Don't get stuck on doing things that don't matter, that are irrelevant. And there's some things like, when you think about it, some of the most important things you do, you might only use maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a game. But you better be really good. You better be able to, as I said before in another rant, is that the standard details. You better be able to make a good, hard, flat pass, an accurate pass. You better be able to do these things. You better be able to protect the puck. You better be able to have your head on a swivel and make plays and find players. You better work on your vision. You better work on your game. How are you managing your game? What are you doing for your fitness levels? All these are things that you can control. But worrying about where you're going to end up, that's up to you. It's not your concern about what you did yesterday. You can look at that as a lesson and say, okay, here's what I did last year. And then you look at the draft and you go, oh my God, I didn't get drafted. Well, hopefully that would be a lesson to say that maybe you did something that was wrong, or maybe you're late mature. Maybe you mature late. So there's different ways to get to pro. Some guys go to the Western Hockey League and then they go to the NHL. Some guys go to the CHL and then they go to the East Coast League, the American League, and the NHL. Some guys will go from the CHL to the American League to the NHL. Some guys will go from the BC Junior Hockey League to the NCAA to the NHL. There's many routes, but it's all about using time wisely to make sure you're working on the things that you need to. So again, don't worry about the things you can't control, but worry about the things you can control. You got 960 minutes every day to be better. So make sure you're focusing on the things that need to be fixed, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Anyway, be well, be safe, and I know it's crazy time, so hopefully the hockey season will get going soon. But let's use this time wisely, shall we? All the best.